Oh, hi there. Today, I'd like to spend a little bit of time talking about wearing a mask. I want to cover two major areas with this. The first is a more indirect reason why we need to wear a mask right now. What have we done as people to bring this consequence of cause and effect to wearing a mask? And the second is why wearing a mask in public is a good thing as a member of society. I'm really wanted to cover this information because these are a few aspects that you don't hear very often. And I want to help people redirect this anger and frustration of mask wearing to a more productive space. So first of all, the first major thing I want to talk about is the reason that we're wearing a mask is because we're in a pandemic. And the reason we're in a pandemic is because there's an infectious disease that's been spread. And it's spreading around the world and in our local areas and in our global areas. So that's caused a nationwide mask mandate. And this has caused frustration because people say to themselves, I don't want to be oppressed. I don't want to be forced to wear a mask. One way you can redirect that energy is look at in your life where you're oppressing other beings, especially beings lesser than you, and particularly farm animals and animals that you eat. This is a virus that comes from the abuse of pangolins and bats and bringing them close together so that their viruses can mutate and then jump to humans. This virus, the concept of coronavirus, has spread other times. This is not a surprise. We knew this was coming, and we also know right now that there are more coming based on if we don't change. So you can take this mask and look at it as a symbol. This is a symbol of oppression, but not so much of the government oppressing us. You can take it that way, but then you must see it as we consumers are oppressing farm animals and animals that are being put into industrial farms. So this is an opportunity to reflect on yourself and to say, where in my life am I oppressing other beings? And how are these oppressed beings mutating viruses? We know that our current factory farms here in America are mutating viruses, particularly branches off influenza. And the only reason influenza exists in the first place is because humans took chickens and put them in these small conditions where this virus could mutate. And that's where the flu came from. Now there's tons of mutations of the flu, and they're getting more longer time period and the worse conditions that we're putting them in. The different strands we're going to get, and we're going to get more pandemics. I mean, we had the H1N1 virus. That the swine flu is another version of it. So we have to see that us as consumers are guilty of this. One of the reasons you can say we're wearing a mask is because we have oppressed others, and this is a way of cause and effect, of karma. If you're currently buying factory farm products or eating animals in any form, those animals have been abused. Unless you went out with a bow and arrow and shot it and skinned it yourself, that's a form of abuse, but it's not as bad as what we do in industrial farms. So this is an opportunity for us to look at ourselves. If we feel oppressed, look around and see where you are funding oppression. The second aspect I want to cover is to look at this as a member of society. That's why I'm wearing a mask. I'm not wearing a mask because I think that this is going to protect me from a virus. I don't have the virus, and most of the people I hang around don't have the virus, so wearing a mask doesn't make sense from an individual perspective. This is where you get a lot of these complaints. I don't want to do it. It doesn't make sense. But you have to look at society as a giant, a bell curve of people. Meaning like on one side of the spectrum you have really sharp, good people who are, like doing the right thing and clear, and if they get sick, they quarantine, and they know how to protect themselves, and they have a really healthy diet, and they're on one side of the spectrum. And then you have everybody, and then you have this population of people who aren't doing so well in their life. They have a poor diet, they may not be financially stable, they're kind of struggling a little bit, and they might be having to go out in the world more, into more dangerous areas, that they're more likely to get the virus. These people we would call super spreaders, because when they get the virus, they don't have as good decision making, so they were more likely to just go out and go to the grocery store or go places and just spread the virus. They don't have a technique for quarantining, they don't have a technique for keeping themselves, like tissues and everything. So these people are also people who won't wear a mask, even when they're sick. And that's because they're afraid, they're conformists, and they don't want to put something on their face and show everybody that they're different. So because of that, that's one reason why we all have to wear a mask. We're being good role models. We're saying, look, everybody, it's okay to wear something over your face if you have a virus inside of you. It'll help prevent it from spreading to others. So by wearing a mask in public, we're saying to the population, if you have a virus inside of you, if you put a cloth over your face, it will reduce the amount of that virus that gets out. So that's the important perspective to have on this. As an individual, it may not make that much sense to wear a mask, and that's where a lot of people are going from. But that means you have a self-centered, selfish perspective. You have to see yourself as a member of society. As in, there are people in the society who are way smarter than you, and there are people in the society that are way dumber than you. So we're here as a society to come together and make an agreement on this, that for everybody during this time where that there's an infectious disease around, we're just going to wear masks so that we can be good role models and good examples for people who are super spreading. So that's the main thing. I'm hoping that this can help redirect some of that energy, some of that anger, or some of that feeling of oppression. It's very unhealthy to take that feeling of oppression and point to the closest governor, the closest political person, and say, you can't oppress us, this is a symbol of oppression, you're oppressing us. If that's your feeling inside, you need to redirect that energy, and then look in your own life. Where are you oppressing? And there's a chance that you can't see your own oppression. It may be in your past. If you're somebody who's vegan, for example, and you're like, I have eliminated oppression. Well, most people have had experiences in their childhood where they did something. Even like if you ate meat as a child, that money and that energy funded oppression. And so we're still paying for this. And as members of society, we need to stop buying animal products from factory farms that incubate influenza viruses and viruses that are going to come back and hit us in the next 100 years, possibly several times if we continue the level of eating animals that we're doing. And so it's an opportunity for growth as an individual. That's where we should be directing our view on this. After we've kind of cleaned our own house, we can then comment on how our government and how other people in society are dealing with this situation. So when you're out there and you're putting on a mask, you can think of it as this is the consequence of living in a society that oppresses animals. And this is a way of showing everybody that if you're sick inside, then it's not a big deal to just kind of cover up and just be someone who's aware and cares and is attempting to stop the spread and stop spreading it to others. So now it is time for me to go out into the world.